Hey everybody, Derek here to bring you another video for the Walking Dead countdown to the start of Season 6. And tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a prediction video for Daryl, kind of figuring out some of the things that they are going to do with his character in the upcoming Season 6. I've done some of the other characters, but I really wanted to get on a very main central character and figure out where they're going to go with him. Because Daryl is definitely the fan favorite on the show. He definitely has a lot to give, a lot to provide, and we love him. And I really want to be able to do a little bit of analysis into his character and see what they're going to do with him. So just in case you are not caught up with Walking Dead up through season 5, there may be some spoilers in this video that you may not want to hear. So if you're not caught up, don't watch the video because you might be spoiled. Okay, here we go. So, looking back on Daryl from his season 1, appearance till now, we realize that he has been a very complex character that has somewhat evolved over time. In season 1 and kind of in season 2, we saw a person who was arrogant and distant, and in a sense, I think intentionally trying to keep himself distant from people by being rude, by being mean, by being ornery, being all of those things distanced him. And then, of course, you have season 2 coming along where, he wants to find Sophia and is unable to, so he again distances himself for a couple of episodes there. Once the end of season 2 comes, Daryl becomes a very central part of this group. He finds his place, is willing to help people. He's become a caretaker for many of these people, helping them to get food, helping to keep them safe. He is really a protective type of person with everyone in this group, and in a sense treats them like a family unit. And then Merle comes along and kind of throws a wrench in there, and you have Daryl struggling with whether he's gonna, stick with Merle, his blood, or his new family. And of course, Merle dies, and Daryl becomes a big leader in the prison community. He really helps to get everybody into the prison. He and Rick go out and recruit people. They make a community. He's the leader of it, and all of a sudden, it just all comes crashing down in Too Far Gone. And I felt like in many ways, Daryl's not over that yet, which is some of the things that I'm going to talk about. I find that, even though Daryl has made progress in his life and has, started to form those relationships with people, he's still struggling with a lot of problems from his past. And one of that is his past abuse from his father. We know that he was beaten by his father. He didn't really have any family structure in general, really. His mom died when he was very young in that fire that he told us about. His father died at some point and really just wasn't helpful at all. He wasn't a father figure. And then Merle was in and out of juvie. So he really didn't have that family unit. And I feel like in many ways, Daryl struggles with connecting with people, partly out of fear of, in my opinion, how they might perceive him or treat him. And then the other thing I find is also afraid of losing them, I think is a big part of Daryl's fears. We've seen that throughout his life, the people that he should have had connections with and should have had a loving bond with abandoned him. Maybe not of their own free will, like Merle, in a sense, was in juvie and out of juvie. But I mean, I don't think that Merle was necessarily thinking about his brother all the time, 100%, and Daryl's best interest. So, you have Merle coming in and out of his life. Daryl can't trust that he's going to be there. His mother dying. You have his father, not being there. And then you get into this, zombie apocalypse, and you realize that he's also confronting that same issue. This, to me, it's a fear of growing close and then losing things, which we saw with, Sophia, this hope that he could find this little girl that was lost in the woods, which I think kind of reminded him of that time when he was lost in the woods for 9 days. I think in many ways he kind of felt what Sophia, might have been feeling at the time because he's gone through that, which prompted him to want to search for her even more. You had him losing out on that because Sophia died. You have Merle, dying in season 3. And then when Daryl finally finds a place in the prison community and really, starts to become important, opens up, when they lost Zach, he said it. I'm tired of losing people. And I think that inside, that was him saying how he truly has felt about everything in his life. He's tired of losing things. He's tired of losing people, which has happened his entire life. Then you get too far gone, and all of that gets taken away. Herschel gets killed. Many of the other prison, survivors die, and Daryl loses his place. And I think that we've seen that ever since then, right up until maybe near that moment in the season finale, season 5, when Daryl and Aaron leave the car, Daryl really was not up to par with what he's been before. I feel like he regressed in many ways back to those former feelings, of not, growing close, of really being distant. And we found that he really was more guarded towards himself. There really wasn't a lot of drive in him until, there was hope that Beth was out there. Then that, drove his spirit up a little bit. Going on this, mission to save Beth, which was something that was important to him because he had a connection with Beth, which was established after they, lost the prison. And, you sit there, and I think that episode still, when you look back on it, just makes so much more sense overall with the plot and what's happened with Daryl. That Beth telling him that he was going to be the last man standing, that he was going to miss her when she was gone. I mean, those phrases make so much sense now that Beth is dead. Because, that prediction in a sense came true. And Daryl, I think, is struggling with that. And I think that he is struggling with growing close and losing anybody else in his life. Which is why ever since Beth died, he really wasn't, communicating very well with the group. He still cares about them and he's going to be there for them, but, he's still struggling a lot with some things. And I think that, when he got there and he didn't really know how to fit in or didn't really know what to do, I think that was just a fear that he had, of Alexandria failing, not being something that it was, that was like the prison. I think he was afraid of losing it. And I'm very interested to see what's going to happen now in season 6 with Daryl, because I really think that a lot of these issues with Daryl are going to carry over. Now that he is a recruiter for Alexandria, I wonder, are there other motivations for him taking that position? Because something that I always thought about was, Daryl has now taken a position that has him leave the safety of the community to recruit and provide for people, but why is he doing it? Is it just because he's good at it? And I think there are a lot of reasons for why Daryl does what he does. He is good at it. He is, very survival oriented out there. He's a good tracker. He's a good hunter. He's good at a lot of those things. But part of me wonders if he, goes into the woods or goes outside of the safety of the community now, since it's a zombie apocalypse, because it prevents him from having to confront his problems, having to confront his fears. And I wonder about that because you see that with Aaron and Eric in a sense that they also, have a little bit of a distance between them and the other members of the community because they were constantly going out. They didn't have all that time to bond. And I think that there is some separation between Aaron, Eric, and the community. And Daryl, in a sense, seems to be doing the same thing. Now, is he doing it because he doesn't want to confront his problems? I think that's a very good possibility. I believe that he uses the woods, uses this opportunity to escape all of his problems and not have to grow close to other people and risk losing them. Things along those lines. I think that there is a little bit of an element that plays in there. And, you know, I think in season 6, that is something that has to change for Daryl. I think that it's time to really put the drive back into Daryl to want to make changes within himself that are better for him, things that will make his situation a lot better. Because I still think Daryl's struggling, and I think that season 6 is the opportunity for them to really uh, take a hard look at those problems and bring them to the light and see Daryl start to deal with them. I think that would be very beneficial for his character and give him a story. And I think that one of the ways that that's going to happen is I think the recruiters are going to stop going out sometime in season 6. I think that is going to happen. That happens in the comics. In volume, I think it's 15. Don't quote me on it. It was either 13 or 15, somewhere around there. And what happened was Aaron and Eric went back out, found a woman, observed her, did what they usually did, and then the woman stabbed Eric. Now, Eric lived, but they lost one of the horses. And after having dealt with, a lot of dangerous situations, and, I think it was after they had dealt with, the group in Washington, D.C., the Scavengers that were led by Derek, the Walkers, and other threats that, like Rick has seen in the past, like the governor, the cannibals, people like that. He says, I don't think you should go out anymore, Aaron, because it's risky. We don't know the kind of people that are out there, and we don't want to recruit, the wrong people. And that's the thing, is it's so hard to find good people in the world anymore. Because, I mean, you saw how, Rick's group kind of balances that line between being helpful and being a threat to the community. You see that they walk a fine line there, especially Rick. And recruiting other people can be dangerous because you don't know what they're like. And I think that that's going to happen in the TV show. As a result of the wolves and how dangerous they are, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Daryl or Aaron or somebody like that ran into them first and then caused this issue, which would then lead to, Rick realizing that there are dangerous people out there and they can't take the risk of recruiting anybody bad, which could force Daryl to have to stay inside. Now, will Daryl be happy about that? I'm not sure. And I think that that's going to be a problem for him because I think that he does, have a sort of element that he feels outside of the walls by putting himself in that position. That's just something that he's about. It was like how Joe said, you don't want to, it's bad to fool an outside cat into thinking that he's an inside cat. And I really think that that's the thing with Daryl. Is it possible to make an outside cat into an inside cat? I don't know. And I guess the phrase is you don't want to necessarily take somebody who is in that kind of an element and force them to adapt to something that they're really not meant to be adapted to. That's a bad idea. And I think that you see a lot of that through history, where you try to make people, become something that they weren't, and it doesn't really end up very well. And I don't know if Daryl could, like imagine this was the real world and Daryl put on a suit and a tie and walked in to be like some businessman. I mean, if that's what Daryl could do, that would be great, but I just can't see that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their place and everybody can find their place, but taking Daryl out of the element that he's comfortable in could be hard for him. And I wonder if this is going to be the opportunity to really delve into his character and explore who he is, more about him, because we've gotten, the information about his family and the fact that he described himself as a drifter, before the apocalypse. Everybody was always asking him, what did you do? He basically just followed Merle around and did nothing. But, and I think that's accurate, but what are some other things that happen there? I think there are a lot more stories to be told. And there is speculation going out there that they are casting a female psychologist character. I believe the casting call was the name Allison. She could be anywhere from her late 20s to early 40s, who basically is a psychologist. And this would be an opportunity for Daryl to really confront all of those issues and have somebody to talk to, because he really hasn't opened up to a lot of people. Carol's really been the one, person that in a sense he's kind of opened up to, but he's still really guarded in many ways with her as well. And I think that it's really going to take the right person. And perhaps, her being a psychologist, this Allison character, this may be the opportunity for Daryl to really, confront his past and abandon maybe many of those terrible feelings that he has that could make him into a very different but yet exciting character. Somebody who's still changing. And I feel like that's something that Daryl's always going to struggle with, though. Some things, we don't get over, but we use those experiences to help us, move on or deal with a certain circumstance in a way that we feel, maybe healthy, it may be unhealthy, or it might just be what we need to do to deal with that. And when it comes to Daryl, if you remember back in season 5, when he and Carol were at the abuse shelter, he took that book. And part of me wonders if, because of that, if he's going to read it now that he's inside the community. Like, if they do have the chance to pull him back in, and I don't know if he takes it out with him or not when they're outside. I don't really think they have time for reading when they're worried about something coming around the corner and biting them every minute. But if Daryl is taken out of the, the recruiter stage, he may start reading that book, or he may have already started to read it. And, maybe he might, be motivated to want to seek help, to potentially talk with Allison or with somebody and just really confront, what he's dealt with. Because really, Daryl was very down in the dumps for the most part of season 5, and it wasn't until he got out of that car that he really, we saw like the old Daryl again. Daryl was ready to give up, ready to say, Aaron, you go save yourself, I'll sacrifice myself. But something within him and a little bit of, conversation with Aaron helped him overcome that. And I think that now is the perfect time for the show to start confronting that about Daryl, because it's going to keep him interesting, it's going to keep him with a story, and it's going to continue to allow us to look in on Daryl, to see how he develops, and to see what he's dealt with. I think this is the perfect time, and I really hope that they follow this story in season 6. Definitely a lot of questions. We don't really have too much information yet. No trailer probably for another month or two, but I'm really looking forward to season 6. Really, really am. So I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Thank you for all of your support. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the video suggestions. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if there are any other suggestions you guys want to see, please do not be afraid to suggest any video topic. I really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.